A pre-party, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. I'm your host, Jay Cal, and we pre-party every Tuesday at 5:05 Eastern, 2:05 Pacific, and we talk NWA, we talk pro wrestling, we talk the National Wrestling Alliance. And from the looks of it, not very many of you are on, and that's okay, because we'll just talk to ourselves for a bit, right? Anyway, as you can see, J. Cal is not in the world-famous Buckets for Rent studios. No, Jason Cal, J. Cal, I slipped there, is at the home office. You can see the Alliance banner. This is where I normally broadcast the podcast that I do with former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion Kevin Douglas and DKM. But unfortunately, we haven't done that podcast for a while now because there hasn't been any new episodes of NWA Power. But never fret, ladies and gentlemen, never fret, because the NWA has got you taken care of every Tuesday night since the outbreak, since the COVID-19, the virus that's been keeping everyone at home and putting a halt on professional wrestling as well as many other activities, has more or less kept people at home. The NWA is still producing content. Now, is it content from a year ago? Yeah, it is. But you know what? It's free. And you know what, even more? These are the pay-per-views, guys. These pay-per-views had monetary value that you are getting to watch for free. The NWA cherishes its audience, and it gives them an alternative week after week. And this week, we are going to see the pop-up event, the New Year's Retribution? No, I don't remember what it was even called. It's the pop-up event that they did with Tried and True Pro Wrestling. This is going to be a first. Nobody's here. So, I'm going to do two things real quick while you guys are waiting. And hopefully you guys will come here and join the conversation. Now, we couldn't get on Twitch today for whatever reason, but we are on Instagram Live. So, I'm going to do two things real quick. That's funny. You guys can hear me. This is great. Hopefully you guys will, this is great TV. And join the conversation. This is makes for great. Okay. Yes, it's quiet. It's a little too quiet. Where is everybody? I'm not used to doing this without you guys. So, hey Gerald. This is not quite the same show that we normally do because this is a presentation, a pre-party, if you will, before the NWA Power. But as you guys know, NWA Power has been put on a temporary hiatus. It's being reworked, repackaged to basically stretch out the material because the NWA has kind of been in a stalling pattern. And, well, until things get a little bit better on that end, it looks like it's going to be that way. So, tonight, of course, they're going to air the pop-up event. And that should be fun. That should be exciting. If you guys are unfamiliar, the pop-up event, actually, that was supposed to be, the pop-up event was supposed to be a regular thing that they were going to do. This was before TV started. And the thought at the time was that it was going to... Hey, DKM, welcome to the show. It was supposed to be a deal where they were going to run a couple of these bigger shows with kind of like a co-promotion. And, this one was a Tried and True Pro Wrestling. There was speculation that they were going to do one with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Of course, that never came to fruition because as right around that time, they started working on producing the NWA Power show that was became in the works. So, hey, original original Rim, Arizona. Welcome to the show. This is the pre-party. That's a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. You can follow us if you're on Instagram, if you're on Tumblr, if you're on TikTok, if you're on, let's see, where else? Twitch, although we had problems getting on Twitch today. You could also check us out on YouTube, obviously, you're watching here, Facebook, TikTok. We create content as often as we can, and it tries to coincide with the National Wrestling Alliance and talk about what the NWA is talking about. And it's always fun when you guys join in the conversation. So if you have any questions or if you have something you'd like to talk about, let's do it here and now, guys. I see Lamb join the show, and yes, we are in the home studio. One of the fun things. Those are fun things. One of the opportunities that I've wanted to do for quite some time is to actually beef up the home studio. I do have some software and a couple of different things I would like to try to do. So we're going to try to upgrade the home studio, see how the podcast can be better, how the live streams can be better. So as long as we're quarantined, we're in non-mandatory lockdown, I plan on trying to make things a little bit more better. Taking this time, this opportunity to make these shows a little bit better. I don't have high production values, as you guys can tell. The video that you're watching right now is streaming off of a Google Chrome tablet. That's why the camera display is semi-high definition. It's the 720 instead of the 1080. Some of the podcasts you guys see, I use a different camera to record, and the quality is much better. The output's much better. So with this, until we get to, until people are actually paying to watch the show, we have a very low budget. Now, I am getting messages here on my phone, and one such message is from friend of the show, Big Chris Dog, who says, can the NWA put the Bosch footage for an NWA special? Can they use it? And the answer to that is, I don't think so. I know that there's a limited amount of footage that they have available. Basically, what Bruce Tharp had already produced is available, but I also know that they don't want to use it because it wasn't actually... it wasn't done to, I don't know. I guess I'm just speculating. I know that in talking to Lagana in the past, I mean, they have used clips and a little bit of footage. They've used a few of the matches. If you go through the NWA's catalog on YouTube, you'll see there's like a match with, gosh, I am not doing so hot today, so why don't we just do this? Why don't I just look it up? Because it's not like we're missing any viewers. I only got 2.5. Gosh. No offense, guys, but it's kind of I guess I should have prepared a little bit more material next time, right? Let's see here. This will probably go down as the worst podcast I've done in the last few years, but we're still working on it, right? So you guys will give me a mulligan. I'll probably delete it after this one's over. Let's see. The NWA, man. I'm almost thinking about just turning this off and starting over. What are you guys doing to pass the time? How many of you are stuck at home? Let me talk to you, dummy. Okay, so yeah, about 9 months ago, they released the Gino Hernandez versus Dusty Rhodes match. Now, if you guys are familiar with Gino Hernandez, he was probably one of the most underrated heels of his time. I think he could have rivaled Ric Flair in terms of popularity had he been given the opportunity to be showcased to a larger audience. Unfortunately, his demons, meaning his addiction to drugs, well, prevented that from happening, unfortunately. I'm just going down here to see if there was any more that I missed. How terrible am I? Okay, thank God DKM is here producing the show for me because today's been a kind of a crazy day. I actually had to go to my business to let the landlord in because they were doing some maintenance on the property, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare for today's show, and that's not on anyone but me. However, it just was unfortunate I didn't have as much time to do some show prep like I normally do. This will be the last time that happens because I don't like this feeling, and I'll probably prep a show. We might even do another show tomorrow just to try to fix this one. But let's see. DCAM says thoughts on Mike Rapata in his time period. So Mike Rapata was world champion at a very down time for the NWA. I mean, people think that when Shane Douglas threw the belt to the floor in the NWA, in the ECW arena, that was the end for the National Wrestling Alliance, but the NWA still continued to thrive. We had those years with Dan Severn holding the world title, Severn competing in the WWE with the NWA world title, competing in the Octagon for the UFC, still holding on to that 10 pounds of gold, wrestling in Japan, in deathmatch arenas, in different venues. And that really brought some life back into the NWA. But then, fast forward a little bit, Steve Corino's gone, Hashimoto's gone, and we're left with Mike Rapata. Now, Mike Rapata in and of itself he wasn't a bad wrestler. Very generic, very sign of the times. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great. He certainly, in my opinion, wasn't world championship material. However, he caught the attention of some promoters, and they decided to see what they could do and put the belt on him. But again, this was a dark time for the NWA. ECW was now heavily featured on television. It wasn't just on syndicated programming, but they also had the Nashville Network deal. Of course, the Monday Night Wars were in full effect. Raw and Nitro were going back and forth, neck and neck every week. The NWO, DX, Steve Austin, Jeff Jarrett. This was the time where wrestling was at an all-time high, and in the NWA, you had somebody like Mike Rapata, who certainly didn't fit that bill, and didn't garner much interest, if any, at all. Even for the diehard Southern wrestling fans, there wasn't a wide movement to get behind Mike Rapata. Hence why they tried to get the belt on Sabu temporarily. They were trying things to just get the ball in motion. And there were several NWA promotions at the time. Like there was Joe Price in Florida. There was Dennis Corluzzo in New Jersey. Slim Bacon was running shows internationally on military bases like in China and in Korea. So the NWA was promoting these events. It just wasn't getting a lot of traction. And I think you have to put some of the blame directly on Mike Rapata and the promoters that put the belt on him. Had he been able to, garner some interest, maybe things would have been different for the NWA. I mean, look, Adam Pearce, who by my estimation was one of the best world champions the NWA had, he actually could cut promos. He was a great wrestler, and even then, it was hard for him to garner attention and a crowd reaction. So Mike Rapata obviously was, I think he was gifted the title, and I don't think he really made much of an impact with the belt. DKM says, former promotion you missed the most. So former promotion I missed the most. I'm assuming you mean that was connected to the NWA. I mean, there's a couple of them. I think 01 stands out the most because at the time they were using a lot of guys. Kerouac, guys. So we do a live stream here on YouTube, but I'm also on Instagram TV. And Kerouac, one of my good buddies, mentioned Glow. I've actually started watching Glow on YouTube, and it's been kind of interesting to say the least. I watched it as a kid. That was a lot of fun. But 01 I felt like was a promotion that really benefited the NWA, and at least in terms of star power, because the NWA at that time, there wasn't a lot of big names, right? Steve Corino was still around, but not really. He was there. Steve Corino was the biggest name they had now. His fame was ECW World Champion, but he was really doing the whole carrying the back of the NWA. A lot of people don't know that because this was, again, one of the darker times. You had Hashimoto in 01, who, he broke off from New Japan Pro Wrestling, and it was kind of a big deal because 01 is basically an indie promotion in Japan, but it was using one of the top stars in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Hashimoto was well respected, a former IWGP champion, and he had times where he was working in All Japan Pro Wrestling as well. So he was one of the guys who had a lot of value, and the NWA was using that. So I think for the most part, I miss 01. I thought that relationship did well. You had Dan Severn over there, and I think that had that relationship continued with guys like Scrap Iron Adam Pearce, or even at the time Samoa Joe was working for 01, had those promotions kind of worked together still with the new NWA ownership, not the new NWA ownership, but the NWA after the TNA split. I think that could have been beneficial. Lamb says playing Animal Crossing and working. Not Animal Crossing, but yeah, working. It's been a lot of fun. Let's see. DKM's working from home. Same. Big Chris Dog says, if you were the NWA, would you buy or lease NWA footage like Corino versus Hashimoto or the anniversary show? Yeah. I mean, at this point, any footage they use is going to be older footage. It's just going to be stuff from the past. They can't create new footage right now. It's just too dangerous. The environment that we're in right now, the pandemic, I mean, people are getting sick. There was a wrestler in Arizona who recently was part of a empty arena show, and even he came down with the COVID-19. So the fact that he got the coronavirus and he was in a ring with other wrestlers exposing them to the coronavirus, it just doesn't make sense. And there's too much potential for harm, too much potential to get sick. Again, just not a good idea. So I don't think it's a good idea to try to create new footage right now, just until the pandemic gets more contained. But older footage is certainly out there. Older footage is available. You just mentioned, Chris, you mentioned the anniversary show or Corino versus Hashimoto. The problem with that stuff is no one has these. There aren't great master copies somewhere. None of that stuff. None of that stuff is good. It's all grainy, crappy quality. And I think Corino versus Hashimoto happened at PWX, which at the time was NWA East. I don't know. Does Jim Miller still have a master copy of that tape around? And would it make sense to even try to use it? Or like the anniversary shows, who actually owns the rights to that? I mean, I think High Spots has it, but I mean, how good is the quality? How great is it? It's not known. The promotions that if you could go and get footage from, I would recommend Well, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood had several title matches with Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana, Adam Pearce and Blue Demon, Adam Pearce and Brent Albright. A lot of the wrestlers who were wrestling in AEW kind of came out of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, NWA Hollywood at the time. I wouldn't mind seeing those guys featured on some sort of program. But again, now you're kind of cannibalizing another business. Does Championship Wrestling from Hollywood really want to lease or release their footage to the NWA? And then there's NWA Cyberspace, but again, this footage is like 10 years old, 20 years old in some cases. Does anyone really care to see it? I don't know. Kerouac on Instagram says that Georgia is behind any measure of shutting down, so the NWA is definitely on hold. I know that I talked to a source with the National Wrestling Alliance, and June is being optimistic about when they could return, and there's no guarantee that they'll be back in June. Literally nothing is on the books right now. I'm not saying that the Crockett Cup is suspended indefinitely, but it might not happen until later in the year, which means new footage from the NWA is going to be on hold indefinitely. I mean, this pandemic could really suspend not just the NWA, but wrestling in general. WWE could get away with doing these live arena events. AEW can get away with this, but indie promotions and smaller promotions, it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't work. Chris says, I believe the lack of strong challengers hurts the NWA. I think to a degree you're right, Chris. I think the NWA does lack in strong challenges, but the problem is there are, but there aren't. Okay? When Scrap Iron Adam Pearce was world champion, most of his challengers didn't show up on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood or the NWA Pro Wrestling Showcase. Most of his challengers were outside through NWA affiliated promotions. So you would see Adam Pearce versus Daniel Bryan. You would see Adam Pearce versus Charlie Haas. You would see Adam Pearce versus Carlito. But it wouldn't happen on the NWA Showcase or Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. It would happen in other places. So for the NWA to bring in strong challenges, they can, but it's difficult because again, you've got these restrictions on talent who's available with AEW signing up contracts, MLW signing contracts, Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling. It makes it very difficult to find some challengers. Now we know that our world's heavyweight champion Nick Aldis was supposed to defend against Carlito last month, or earlier this month, and that match didn't happen because, again, the coronavirus. But there has been some opportunities to have some higher profile matches that just haven't happened. They did happen before the NWA Power. I mean, he did defend against Jack Hager. He defended against Billy Gunn. He defended against Jimmy Havoc. So he did put on some higher profile matches. It just David Starr was actually another one I was just thinking of. Unfortunately, they just didn't air on NWA Power. Chris Drummond says, Big Chris Dog says, Bill Behrens has tons of footage too. You're absolutely right. Bill Behrens has tons of footage. Great stuff. The problem is Bill Behrens stuff was also shot on 8mm cameras. It's not great footage. He might have some excellent matches. He might have some star power. But again, if the content is visually not visually stunning to the eyes, who's gonna watch it? It's not entertaining. The match itself could be good, but if it looks like crap in terms of style, production, people aren't gonna watch it. And I don't know if you guys do this. I still, to this day, I'll go on YouTube and I'll watch wrestling matches. I'll check it out, and there's a lot of stuff that's just the quality it's not there. It doesn't look good. Let me try to fix this light a little bit. My power kind of went weird. Ooh, that's weird. Okay, that's a little bit better. More of your questions. Lamb says, SoCal Uncensored, I used to work for them. SoCal Uncensored made a good point that indie promotions may be shut down forever because of the crisis right now. Look, indie promotions are done. until this crisis can be averted, indie is done. There will be places that will pop up sooner than others, but with everything the way it is, people are losing money left and right. Indie promotions make money by running events or having schools, and you can't do either of those right now. Some of them make money through YouTube, but honestly, you're not putting out new content. You're not making more money. It's simple as that. And most promoters aren't sitting on matches waiting to release them, because of a upcoming pandemic. They put out the content when they create it. So it's everyone has to look at this a little bit differently. And again, if you're financially able to do so, now's a great time to support your favorite indie promotions, your favorite indie wrestlers. If you have the means to do so, buy some of their merchandise, order some of their pay-per-views. That's what's going to keep these guys afloat or alive. If they don't get that kind of support, they won't be around. Let's see. Captain Cat says, out of the anniversary shows is a cam version, then a fan. Captain Cat, I don't know what you mean. One of the anniversary shows is a cam version. Oh, okay, I understand now. Yeah, and the quality isn't good. Kerouac says, thank God for WCW Revenge and Virtual Pro Wrestling 2. I loved Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, actually. That was one of my favorite games. And also, if you buy the Nick Aldis Blueprint shirt, you're not only you're supporting the world's heavyweight champion, but that our friend of the show, Kerouac, that was his design. And I think it'd be very cool to do that. God, the light is totally bleaching my face out. All right. Sorry, guys. The light in my studio went out, so this is the best we're going to get for now. Lamb said that was so... Okay. DKM says, well, poor quality might be better than nothing. Okay. But how many times have you turned on a video and then turned it off when the quality was bad? I was trying to watch a match the other day with Dan Severn taking on William Regal from one of the anniversary shows, and the quality was just so horrible I turned it off. I couldn't get into it. If you guys can do it, great. There was also a Dan Severn versus Rodney Mack, Jazz's husband, Red Dog, and just the quality was so terrible I couldn't watch it. Kerouac, anytime, brother. You send me those shameless plugs. Maybe you can design a new Alliance Wrestling t-shirt. I'm just saying, if you got time on your hands. Let's see. Captain Cat says NWA Wildside is cool. Wildside was cool, but again, the quality isn't there. If you guys... Wildside still has their stuff on YouTube. Go check it out. Tell me if you would watch that for a full hour. Oh, wow. Really, Kerouac? That's awesome. Sorry, side conversation. That'd be awesome, Kerouac. I'd appreciate it. And I'll plug the shit out of whatever you got. Gotta run events to make content. Captain Cat says you gotta run events to make content, and you're 100% true, except for there's other ways to create content outside of just actual wrestling. And I think that if you put matches based around other content, you can make things happen. But again, with the whole pandemic still going on, it's not even safe to do that. You're putting yourself at risk, your family at risk, for what? For a few extra views? The NWA, I'm sure everyone there is taking this very serious, and I'm sure most wrestling promotions are taking this whole pandemic very serious. So they're not going to put themselves at risk or their talent at risk until this is safe. They're not going to go out and try to create additional content. Now, I know that our world's heavyweight champion just recorded content today, I think from his home office, answering questions on the YouTube channel. You guys can check that out. I think it's youtube.com/TheNWA. And again, stuff like this is helpful because he's doing it from the safety of his own home. That's one of the cool things about the modern society and technology. You could broadcast from your home. I'm doing it right now. But what happens is it gets to be dangerous. And I think it's hard to try to create this content. But, if they can make it work, I kind of trust Dave Lagana to make something happen with the footage that's already shot and the ways to add additional content. Again, putting Nick Aldis, answering questions on Twitter and throwing at it with a match could be an episode of NWA Power if it has to be. And like I said, they have lots of title matches that, all those 10 pounds of gold that were filmed, Every one of those had a match that corresponded with it. Or just about everyone. Okay, let's see. DCam says... Oh, wait, I don't want to jump around too much. DCam says the wrestlers, however... I'm not sure what you mean, but... Oh, DCam says, actually, so many indie promotions lose money when they run. Some might be able to save up. True. But the wrestlers, however, might not. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Wrestlers themselves are hurting right now. And that's why there's such a demand, like, support their content, support their videos. If you have the means to do so, buy their t-shirts. Hey, guys, I'm even asking you guys to listen to my podcasts, watching here on YouTube or on Anchor or Spotify. I'm trying to give you guys content that doesn't cost you anything, and that helps support me. I think wrestlers would be wise to do the same thing. Indie wrestling has been going down for 20 to 30 years. Captain Cat, you're correct. But, well, no, because in the 90s, indie wrestling was garbage too. I mean, look, in the 90s, indie wrestling sucked. It was awful. Awful. I remember being... the first wrestling show I ever attended was in my high school gym. It used stars from the old LaBelle territory, the NWA Hollywood, the original NWA Hollywood, the LaBelles, and had featured some talent from the AWA and some indie talent. So, I mean, we had I think it was Hector Guerrero. It wasn't Chavo. It wasn't Eddie. But I think it was Hector. I was a young kid. I was 14, 13. I don't remember who was on the card. But it was really brutal. It was terrible. They brought in wrestlers from the Glow. So there was Hollywood, a personal favorite of mine. And it was an awful, awful show. But that was 90s wrestling. And it wasn't very good then. Lamb says, call me if a new AllianceBlog shirt comes out. I need one, haha. Also, our users can buy the shirt with a logo on Amazon, right? Lamb, thank you for the plug. Yes, the original Alliance Wrestling t-shirt, this one with this logo on it, is still available on Amazon. Again, if you guys want to buy the shirt, go for it. If not, that's totally cool too. Maybe we might get a new design thanks to Kerouac. We'll see. Captain Cat says, NWA Wildside had decent ratings 20 years ago on their local cable. However, you were correct. The production kind of sucked. And, you can't put too much blame on Bill Behrens or the production staff. Again, technology wasn't great. The fact that they kept using the same cameras as production possibilities got better, that's what I kind of blame them for. Smoky Mountain Wrestling, filmed 5 years earlier, had better production values. Probably. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't see a whole lot of Smoky Mountain because it wasn't really available out here. The first wrestling promotion that made it out here that wasn't connected to the WWE or WCW was ECW. And even that footage, if you watch that now, it doesn't look very good either. I did find Wildside years later, and I watched it on the internet on a dial-up modem, which was awful, but, it was what it was. You could tell that Cornette was a pro versus Bill Behrens. I think Bill Behrens, his background was more syndication, not so much production. At least I think. I could be mistaken. We did an interview, DCam, Jaden, and I did an interview with Bill Behrens a couple of years ago, and he went into details about that. And maybe that's something we'll pull up from the vault soon and let you guys hear in its full entirety. But yeah, syndication was how Bill Behrens made his money. Same with the Savoldis, who used to do NWA Fire. NWA on Fire. They also were known for syndicating wrestling. So the show, you'd be seeing it everywhere, and they made their money on the advertising, not so much for viewership, not the numbers, but so much as the advertising that was on those shows. Captain Cat says, yes, the 90s is when indie wrestling started going downhill. Captain Cat, just a reminder, the 90s were about 30 years ago. Jesus, we're all old. DCam says production equals money. Absolutely. Yes, you're right. It's true. But if it's worth doing something, it's worth doing it right. And sometimes you got to spend money to make money. You're right. When the territories died, the days of the full-time wrestlers died. The days of events running 8 times a week died in the 80s. Yeah, no, look, in Captain Cat, you're absolutely right. We saw the whole around the time Jim Crockett was buying up promotions and WWE went national. You could see that there was a trend. Things were going away. Locally in Southern California, we lost NWA Hollywood like 1983, 1984. By 86, it was done. There was no more wrestling from the Grand Olympic Auditorium. Occasionally, the AWA would come out here, but this is mostly a WWE territory. And that's just how it goes. Yeah, when the territories died, wrestling changed, but it also became a multi-million-dollar industry as well. McMahon got rich off of the territories. Jim Crockett grew too much. He didn't do it the right way, and or else he'd probably be rich too. I mean, probably. I don't know. Okay, the Alliance blog. Well, I'm not putting Bill down. He did better work than me, and I couldn't have modern equipment. Captain Cat, yeah, and I didn't taking that as putting him down. I think his expertise wasn't really production. I think it was syndication. It's interesting to me now that he works as a producer for the NWA Power program, and I think he's a welcome addition. But I think his strong suit is really behind the scenes in the syndication side. The Savoldis too, and that was one of the biggest things that I had a problem with the NWA ownership 2 generations ago, when it was Pro Wrestling Organization LLC, is that you had multiple people who were familiar with syndicating programming, and then you had Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, or NWA Hollywood, who was good at producing television, and it seemed like if they could have gotten all 3 of those parties to work, that we could have had NWA on TV, in a syndicated markets. Championship Wrestling from Hollywood right now is on multiple markets, and they're doing the same show in different markets with different themes. And it's like, if you guys could have thought about that 15 years ago, the NWA might still be around. Well, I mean, it is still around, but the old NWA, the territory system. You guys are the best. I just want you to know that. I appreciate you guys jumping on here. Oh, Dr. Hollywood has a comment. Yo, I didn't like James Storm as a tag champ. He just seems lost to me. Even Eli Drake seems off. So, I'm not the biggest James Storm fan. I'm not. I love Eli Drake. He is a product of so much knowledgeable wrestling. He was a student of Les Thatcher. He came out to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. He was under the tutelage of Percy Pringle. Dave Marquez was grooming him to be a future world heavyweight champion. He was grooming Brian Cage and Eli Drake to be the next NWA tag team champions. There was a lot of work going into Eli Drake, and then he signed with the WWE. If you guys don't remember, he was like something like Concrete Slex or something. I don't know. It was a weird name. Things obviously didn't happen for him in the WWE. Some people said it was an attitude problem. Some people just said he wanted too much too fast. Went to Impact, won the title twice. Impact saw value in him, but he didn't want to, wrestle to a woman. He didn't want to wrestle a woman. He didn't think it was believable, and I can respect someone for sticking to their values. I think certainly Eli Drake is a future world heavyweight champion for the NWA. I think he's an amazing performer. The pairing with him and James Storm is different. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I think it's just a way to keep both guys somewhat relevant without putting them into main title pictures. Now, you've got a national champion and a third-degree national champion in Aaron Stevens, who would be prime for a good feud. Maybe somebody like Eli Drake would be a perfect foil, because Eli Drake certainly can talk circles around anyone, and Aaron Stevens is really good at cutting promos. That would be interesting. Same thing with James Storm. You also have Zicky Dice, the new TV champion. I know that they're kind of treating the TV title as like a introductory championship. I think they're putting it on guys who they want to put spotlight on, but I think Eli Drake would be perfect as a TV champion as well, because he's certainly capable of having those high profile matches, those quick matches, and he's made for TV. I mean, he literally is made for TV. The fact that the TV title isn't on him, to me, just kind of seems crazy. Let's see. All right, let's go back. Lamb says Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and Dave Marquez made a smart decision by selling this Championship Wrestling from Hollywood rights to so many TV stations instead of building a new territory promotions. That remains to be seen, Lamb. I think what they're doing makes a lot of sense right now. And if honestly, if I was these local indie promotions in those markets, I would want to work with Dave Marquez and I would want to be a part of this United Wrestling Network, because if you're airing these champions, these wrestlers in my market, that's basically, if I put on a show featuring those talents, those guys are going to get, facial recognition. If I'm Joe Blow promoter in Houston, Texas right now, and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood is airing there, why not bring in Ray Rosas and Andy Brown? Why not bring those guys in and have a match in Houston featuring some of the top indie wrestlers in Houston? Why not showcase that United Wrestling Network TV title or the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood Heritage title? Either one would be a good way to kind of take from that audience that's already there. I mean, that's just me personally. I think there's room for both. If you're putting TV on in a market, why not use the people who are watching that show to bring them to your shows? Right? You're watching on TV. Bring those people to your live events by featuring those wrestlers against your wrestlers. It seems like it makes sense, but I don't know. Lamb says we all want Eli Drake as world champion. Does anyone not want Eli Drake as world champion? I mean, I love Nick Aldis, and I stand with Nick Aldis. 500 plus days as world champion. He's really carried the NWA on his back. It's time for a break, though. It's time for someone else to get an opportunity. I think Damian Wayne just joined us on Instagram. Damian Wayne, if that's you, salute, sir. Thank you for checking us out. You are missed. I know that you didn't stop wrestling. Of course, you're still wrestling, but it'd be fun to see you in the modern NWA as well. With guys like Chance Prophet, too. Let's see. Chris Dog says he loves James Storm. Wait, he says he loves Storm. Are you referring to James Storm or Tim Storm? Captain Cat says Championship Wrestling from Hollywood has great production values, always has. Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of, again, there's a lot of NWA matches that happen in Hollywood. Again, if something could work out, it'd be nice to see those matches make it onto NWA programming. I mean, they recently had Ricky Starks out there challenging Eric Watts, and he freaking powerbombed him. Ricky Starks powerbombed. Let's see. Okay. Storm is a multiple NWA tag champion. Yeah, he is. And I don't want to take anything away from him. Like I said, I'm not his biggest fan, but I don't think he's a bad wrestler. Just not my cup of tea. Captain Cat, I've always loved America's Most Wanted. Yeah, I mean, that was a fun tag team, but I think that time was also, again, we're talking about almost 20 years ago. Their height of their popularity was about 20 years ago, so maybe it's time to move on from that. Chris Dog, can we have an honest discussion about the NWA Ring of Honor Alliance? The Ring of Honor fans hate it. How the NWA fans feel? I don't know. So I'm not a huge Ring of Honor fan, and I don't see why anyone would hate that, because basically you're not being force-fed the NWA. You're just getting some cross-promotion. And honestly, Ring of Honor has done almost nothing to develop new stars outside of the Bandito and Roosh, and outside of Villains Inc. Which stars have they created? It's lacking star power. And Nick Aldis, honestly, is probably the biggest star in indie wrestling that isn't connected to AEW or New Japan Pro Wrestling or the WWE. Nick Aldis is kind of like a free agent. Nick Aldis is the NWA, but he's allowed to work anywhere. So I don't know. I feel like if Ring of Honor fans are unhappy about the NWA relationship, I mean, they should probably just look at the Ring of Honor and see how desperate it needs stars. Many aren't big on all this. They feel they're building towards a Ring of Honor versus NWA title bout. Okay, so Dr. Hollywood wants Eli Drake to lose the weird beard, then he can get a run with the belt. Fair enough. I mean, I happen to be a fan of my beard, and I don't think, I don't know. I don't know I don't know the beard situation. Maybe Ring of Honor is trying to have an invasion angle. Oh, I'm sorry, getting out of hand here. So yeah, a Ring of Honor versus NWA. I don't think that's going to happen. At least the world title belts, I don't think they're going to intercross. I just don't think there's a need for that. They can be treated as separate entities. Remember, Cody won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship at the All In pay-per-view, and they didn't have to bring the Ring of Honor title into that. Nick Aldis doesn't need to be Ring of Honor World Champion to cement his legacy as the NWA World Champion, and it just isn't a need. They could treat both titles as two separate things. You got to remember, WWE does that every week. They have both the World's Heavyweight Championship and the Universal Championship. Both are prestigious. Both of them have value. Obviously, one is they don't really treat like one is more important than the other unless Brock Lesnar is holding it. So I don't know. I think they could do that without hurting the brand. And of course, it helps the NWA by getting more exposure. It helps create legitimacy to the Ring of Honor and bringing in star power. If Ring of Honor fans don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. Chris says James Storm was huge. James Storm was a huge beer money fan. What are you saying, Chris? Maybe Ring of Honor is trying to have an invasion angle. They should. There's no reason why they shouldn't. Let's see. When will the question mark change his name to the Corona Kid? Not soon enough. Kikuchi, not soon enough. And Captain Cat, yes, I am saying you're old. We're all old. Anyone who knows about the NWA from 20 to 30 years ago, you're old. I'm sorry. I'm old too. DCam says, I'm old. Captain Cat says, I'm old. DCam says, you guys are saying your ages. Look, you're not that much older than me. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up. Man, you guys really picked it up because this show really started off terrible. You guys are the best. I keep saying that week in and week out. You pick me up. When this show is struggling, you guys make it fun, and I really appreciate that. Now, my goal for next week is to have a much more produced show. We'll see things that maybe they'll look a little bit differently. We'll have to just wait and see. Of course, tonight is the big pay-per-view. Well, not the pay-per-view, but the free review on YouTube. They're going to be featuring the NWA pop-up event. Of course, matches are going to be like David Arquette and Josephus in a hair versus hair match. We've got James Storm taking on Nick Aldis for the world title. I know that both Jazz and Willie Mack are featured on this card. I can't remember the matches, but go check it out. You guys will enjoy it. And Terry McDermott says, I am old. I remember when Dory Funk Jr. was champion. Okay, Terry, you win. Thank you for everyone for checking out the show. Again, we do this every week. And we might start doing it more because honestly, I'm at home and I'm kind of getting bored. So we'll see. Maybe we'll do 2 shows a week. Maybe we'll try doing something Thursday. Anyone free on Thursday? Anyways, until next time, guys, I want to wrap it up. Please visit alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. Again, our t-shirt is available on Amazon. Just search for The Alliance Blog. There's also a link in this video that you guys can just scroll down and take a look at the link. Make sure you check out our podcast, the audio podcast. That's available on anchor.fm. Some of that stuff is going to come from the vault. Some of these interviews from the past 13 years that we've been podcasting about the National Wrestling Alliance. Again, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Tumblr, TikTok, and if I forgot one, just search us. You might find us on another social media that might not be popular yet. And of course, enjoy this every week, and we'll see you guys at the matches. Now, let's all head over to youtube.com NWA and watch the pop-up event. Until next time, guys, I'm Jake Cal, and I'll see you at the matches.